Good morning, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of News on the Hour, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national updates, international updates, also updates from the world of business, sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, we get to the top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend the 18th ASEAN-India Summit to be held virtually today at the invitation of Sultan of Brunei. The summit to review the status of ASEAN-India strategic partnership. It will also take stock of the progress made in key areas including COVID-19 and health, trade and commerce, connectivity and education and culture. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to embark on a 5-day visit to Italy and United Kingdom tonight. Prime Minister to attend the 16th G20 Summit and the World Leaders Summit of COP26. He will also hold several bilateral meetings, including with the Prime Minister of Italy on the sidelines. Union Health Minister chairs meeting with state health ministers on COVID vaccination, PM Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission and also emergency COVID response package. India soon to launch Har Ghar Dastak vaccination campaign for door-to-door vaccination in poor performing districts. India's cumulative vaccination coverage crosses 104.04 crore, 16,156 new cases in the last 24 hours. Recovery rate currently at 98.2%, highest since March 2020. The country aims to cover all eligible population with first dose of COVID vaccine by November end. In Sudan, at least 10 people killed in firing by soldiers on pro-democracy protesters opposing military rule. World Bank suspends aid to Sudan following the military coup in the country. Political leaders, including Prime Minister, were arrested on Monday, sparking nationwide protests and international condemnation. In the T20 World Cup, Sri Lanka to take on Australia in their Super 12 match today. Yesterday, Namibia defeated Scotland by 4 wickets in a Super 12 match to keep its dream run alive in the tournament. In another encounter, England put on a clinical display with both the bat and ball to beat Bangladesh by 8 wickets. Alright, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will today attend the 18th ASEAN-India Summit to be held virtually at the invitation of the Sultan of Brunei. The summit will be attended by heads of state and governments of the ASEAN countries. The 18th ASEAN-India Summit will review the status of ASEAN-India strategic partnership and also take stock of the progress made in key areas including COVID-19 and health, trade and commerce, connectivity and education and culture. Important regional and international developments including post-pandemic economic recovery will also be discussed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the 16th East Asia Summit on Wednesday via video conferencing. The 16th East Asia Summit was hosted by Brunei as the East Asia Summit and ASEAN chair. It saw the participation of leaders from ASEAN countries and other East Asia Summit participating countries including India, China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, USA and Australia. India has been an active participant of the East Asia Summit. This was Prime Minister's 7th East Asia Summit. In his remarks at the summit, Prime Minister reaffirmed the importance of the summit as a premier leaders-led forum in the Indo-Pacific, bringing together nations to discuss important strategic issues. Prime Minister highlighted India's efforts to fight the pandemic through vaccines and medical supplies. He also spoke about Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign for post-pandemic recovery and in ensuring resilient global value chains. He emphasized on the establishment of a better balance between economy and ecology and also climate sustainable lifestyle. The 16th East Asia Summit also discussed important regional and international issues including Indo-Pacific, South China Sea, UNCLOS, terrorism and situation in Korean Peninsula and Myanmar. PM reaffirmed ASEAN's centrality in the Indo-Pacific and highlighted the synergies between ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific and India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. The summit leaders adopted 3 statements on mental health, economic recovery through tourism and sustainable recovery, which have been co-sponsored by India. Overall, the summit saw a fruitful exchange of views between Prime Minister and the other summit leaders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 5-day visit to Italy and the United Kingdom tonight to attend the 16th G20 Summit and the World Leaders Summit of COP26. Now, during the first leg of his visit, Prime Minister will reach Rome to participate in the G20 Summit from 30th to 31st of this month at the invitation of Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi. Also, the summit under the Italian presidency is centered around the theme People, Planet, Prosperity. The summit will be attended by heads of state of G20 member countries, the European Union and other invited countries and also international organizations. Now, this will be the 8th G20 summit which the Prime Minister would be attending. The G20 has emerged as a premier global forum for international economic cooperation. India is scheduled to host the G20 summit in 2023 for the first time. Prime Minister will also hold several bilateral meetings, including with the Prime Minister of Italy on the sidelines. During the second leg of his visit, Prime Minister will leave for Glasgow to attend the World Leaders Summit on 26th Conference of Parties, that is COP26, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Prime Minister will hold numerous bilateral meetings on the sidelines of COP26, including with Prime Minister of UK, Boris Johnson. Our correspondent Amritpal Singh visited Trevi Fountain in Rome, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with other G20 leaders, is expected to visit.
Right now, I'm standing at the iconic Trevi Fountain of Rome. This fountain, which has been popularized by a lot of Hollywood movies, it is said that if you come to this place and throw 3 coins in this pool of water, you're likely to visit Rome again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with other participating leaders of the G20 who will be here in Rome over the weekend, that's October 30th and 31st, are expected to visit the Trevi Fountain during the G20 summit. With my colleagues Pradeep Galotra and cameraman Rakesh Kumar, Amritpal Singh, Trevi Fountain, Rome, DD India.
And the G20 Leaders Summit in Italy and the COP26 Climate Summit in the UK. Now, these are 2 critical international summits that are going to take place in close proximity to each other. Ahead of the Climate Summit, the leaders of the powerful G20 nations will have greater introspections to do. The latest UN report makes it clear that the world is not just doing enough to avert a catastrophe. What is more disturbing is that even the leading economies of the world represented by the G20 are not on track to achieve their original or the new 2030 pledges. Take a look.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Rome on Friday morning to participate in the 2-day G20 summit, he's expected to push for a united global approach in dealing with the situation in Afghanistan. Also, the Prime Minister is expected to push for a collective approach in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and also the climate change issue.
The G20 Leaders Summit will take place on 30th and 31st October in Italy. The G20 leaders are expected to deliberate on a number of key challenges such as recovering from coronavirus pandemic, overcoming poverty, inequality and security situation in various parts of the world. The situation in Afghanistan is also expected to figure prominently. The forthcoming summit will be centered around the theme People, Planet, Prosperity, focusing on areas of recovery from the pandemic and strengthening global health governance. It will also focus on economic recovery and resilience and energy transition and sustainable development along with food security. However, as leaders of the world's biggest economies gather in Rome for the G20, greater focus is likely to be climate crisis facing the world. The next COP26 meeting is taking place in Glasgow, UK, days after the G20 summit. The latest UN climate report rings the warning loud and clear. The annual emissions gap report by United Nations Environment Programme, which measures the gap between anticipated emissions and those consistent with limiting the temperature rise this century, as agreed in the Paris Accord. Current commitments to cut greenhouse emissions put the planet on track for an average 2.7 degrees Celsius temperature rise in this century. Governments will be in spotlight at the upcoming COP26 conference to meet a deadline of this year to commit to more ambitious cuts and pledges in what could be the last chance to put the world on track, limiting warming to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and ideally to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Global warming due to greenhouse gas emissions could breach 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 2 decades. Greenhouse gas concentrations hit a record last year, and the world is way off track in capping rising temperatures. A 30% cut is needed to limit warming to 2 degrees Celsius, and a 55% cut is needed to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Current commitments to net zero could limit warming to around 2.2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, but 2030 pledges so far do not put major emitters on a clear path to this. As a group, G20 countries represent 80% of global emissions. They are not on track to achieve their original or new 2030 pledges. Fossil fuel production is not slowing at the rate needed, with major economies set to produce more than double the amount of coal, oil and gas in 2030 than is consistent with meeting climate goals. Report demonstrates the world would need 7 times more ambition to keep us on the 1.5 degree track. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged world leaders to avoid the climate catastrophe.
Less than 1 week before COP26 in Glasgow, we are still on track for climate catastrophe, even with the last announcements that were made. The 2021 emissions gap report shows that with the present nationally determined contributions and other firm commitments of countries around the world, we are indeed on track for a catastrophic global temperature rise of around 2.7 degrees Celsius. If there is no meaningful reduction of emissions in the next decade, we will have lost forever the possibility of reaching 1.5 degrees.
The warning comes as world leaders are set to meet at the G20 summit and later at COP26 climate summit to try and commit to a more ambitious climate pledge. It could be the last chance to reach the goal of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. The report states that G20 countries are not on track to achieve their original or new 2030 pledges. The G20 emerged as the premier global forum for international economic cooperation. It is the international forum that brings together the world's major economies. Its members account for more than 80% of the world GDP, 75% of global trade, and 60% of the population of the planet.
The Prime Minister is expected to hold bilateral meeting with his counterparts from the G20 countries, where bilateral issues and also global issues shall be discussed. Though G20 is primarily an economic forum, it increasingly is taking decisions and doing deliberations on issues which may fall in the realm of politics. And this is also expected at the 16th G20 summit in Rome. With my colleague Pradeep Galotra and cameraman Rakesh Kumar, Amritpal Singh, DD India, Rome.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman embarks on an official visit to attend G20 Joint Finance and Health Ministers meeting in Rome to discuss measures to strengthen COVID pandemic prevention, preparation and response. The meeting precedes G20 Rome summit. With a view to speeding up COVID vaccination drive, the union government is going to launch a mega vaccination campaign, Har Ghar Dastak. Now, this campaign will be run in the poor performing districts to enthuse and motivate people towards full COVID vaccination. This was stated on Wednesday by Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, during the National Review meeting with health ministers of various states. Talking to reporters, the health minister said that under Har Ghar Dastak campaign, the centre has asked states to campaign and go door to door to identify people and inoculate them, as even now 12 crore people are still to get their second dose. Highlighting the need to accelerate the pace and coverage of vaccination, he stated that there are more than 10.34 crore people in the country who have not taken the second dose after the prescribed interval. The Union Health Minister said that adequate vaccine doses were available in the country and more than 12 crore balanced unutilized doses are still available with the states for administration. He exhorted to the states that no district should be left without full vaccination. He further added that let us aim to cover all eligible with the first dose of the vaccine by November end.
हम हर घर दस्तक करके कोविड वैक्सीनेशन के लिए एक महाअभियान चालू कर रहे हैं। 1 महीने तक आज हमने निश्चय किया है कि घर घर में जाके सभी राज्य अपनी व्यवस्था करेंगे, घर घर पे जाएंगे, फर्स्ट डोज बाकी है उसको फर्स्ट डोज लगाने के लिए आग्रह करेंगे और लगाएंगे। सेकंड डोज जिन्होंने नहीं लिया है ऐसे 12 करोड़ लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई करके उसको भी वैक्सीन लगाएंगे। देश में 48 डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऐसा आइडेंटिफाई किया है जिसमें फर्स्ट डोज 50% से कम लोगों को लगाया गया है। उसको विशेष अभियान के समय में वैक्सीनेशन किया जाएगा। इस दृष्टि से कुल मिला के अगले दिनों में वैक्सीनेशन अभियान तेजी से चला के देश के नागरिकों को टीका लगे, इसलिए हमने विस्तार से चर्चा किया है।
Under India's COVID vaccination coverage, that has crossed 104.04 crore, which means that 104 crore 4,99,873 beneficiaries have been vaccinated so far under this program. More than 49,09,000 vaccine doses were administered on Wednesday. Out of this, 18,24,582 people got their first dose in the last 24 hours and 30,84,672 were given the second dose of the vaccination on Wednesday. And up next, we take a look at the COVID situation from across the country. When we talk of the figures, then the recovery of 17,095 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3,36,14,434. Now, this means that India's recovery rate currently stands at 98.2%. The recovery rate is currently at its highest peak since March 2020. Sustained and collaborative efforts by the state and the centre and also the union territories continue the trend of less than 50,000 daily new cases that is being reported for 123 consecutive days now. 16,156 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The active caseload remains below 2 lakh mark and is presently at 1,60,989, which is the lowest in 243 days. Active cases presently constitute 0.47% of the country's total positive cases, which is the lowest since beginning of the pandemic, that is March 2020. The testing capacity across the country continues to expand with about 12,90,900 tests being conducted in the last 24 hours. India has so far conducted over 60.44 crore tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, weekly positivity rate at 1.19% remains less than 2% for the last 34 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 1.25% and this remains below 2% for the last 24 days and below 3% for 59 consecutive days now. All Delhi schools and colleges will reopen from 1st of November. Briefing reporters in New Delhi on Wednesday, Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, Manish Sisodia, after meeting with the Delhi Disaster Management Authority, said that parents will not be forced to send their kids to schools. He said that all classes will be conducted in blended or hybrid mode and 100% vaccination coverage for all the staff of the schools will be ensured. Earlier, Delhi government had given permission to open schools from classes 9 to 12th from 1st of September. In March last year, schools in the national capital were ordered to be closed due to the pandemic. All right, up next, we're heading for a short break. You're watching News on the Hour. Stay with us.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching News on the Hour. Bombay High Court is likely to give verdict on bail pleas of Aryan Khan, Arbaz Merchant and Munmun Dhamecha today. Now, all these three accused have completed their arguments on Wednesday and the NCB will be filing its submission before Justice N.W. Sambre. On Wednesday, former Attorney General Mukul Rohtagi had argued for Aryan Khan and has referred to Article 21 and 22 of the Indian Constitution, which say that no person should be arrested or shall be detained in custody without being informed about the grounds for arrest and shall have the right to consult a lawyer of his choice. He contended that the arrest memo did not give true and correct grounds for arrest. He said that these constitutional articles are more important than Section 50 of the CRPC. He argued that the remand application is misleading as if to make one feel that large quantities were recovered from Khan. He concluded his arguments and then advocate representing co-accused Arbaz Merchant and Munmun Dhamecha also argued. Additional Solicitor General Anil Singh is likely to file the submission before the High Court today. NCB has also already raised strong objection and has opposed the bail pleas on various grounds. In another development in this case, KP Gosavi, the witness, has reportedly surrendered before Pune police. However, Pune police has claimed that Gosavi has been arrested and had not surrendered. Yogesh Sheetal is joining us to get us more on that. Yogesh, what do we expect the day to hold for? We tell our viewers that Bombay High Court is likely to give verdict on the bail pleas of Aryan Khan, Munmun Dhamecha and Arbaz Merchant.
Very good morning, Preeti. As far as today's expectation is concerned, NCB is going to file its reply. Now, there are three important points on which it is very interesting to see what basically NCB files. The first important point is the entire WhatsApp chat, because WhatsApp chat is the main ground, is in fact the epicenter of the entire case, because on the basis of WhatsApp ground, the retrieval of the chats, the agency had made number of arrests later on, after 2nd of October, and also on the basis of that chat, the agency has been arguing in the Sessions Court, in fact in the lower court, that how all the accused are interconnected, and the case is basically of conspiracy under Section 29 of NDPS Act. So this is the first point. Second point, after WhatsApp chat, other thing like possession, consumption, these 2 points are also very important, because defense has been saying, basically particularly Aryan Khan's advocate has been saying that there is no consumption, there is no possession. From Aryan Khan, there is no medical report which shows that whether he was consuming or he has consumed drug, and also there is no seizure from his custody. In fact, NCB's case is that the seizure was made from accused number 2, Arbaz Merchant. So this is the second point. Third point, the legislative intent that in fact Mukul Rohtagi, the former Attorney General of India, had argued that the legislative intent before the NDPS Act is to treat the youngsters as a victim of drug, not as an offender or as a criminal. So these are the 3 points that are basically advanced by the defense team so far, and we may expect that NCB, which is being represented by the additional Solicitor General Anil Singh, will be definitely countering these 3 points. Apart from these grounds, also there's some constitutional provisions, constitutional articles were argued, particularly Article 21 and also Article 22, which is in fact the flow of the Article 21. And also apart from these constitutional articles, some sections of CRPC like 41A, which is related to the notice basically which must be served to the accused before arrest. Also Article 50 of the CRPC, that basically shows the right of the accused while being arrested. So these 2 sections of the CRPC were also argued by Amit Desai, the advocate of Arbaz Merchant. And apart from these 2, Aryan and Arbaz, coming to next third accused, that is Munmun Dhamecha, her lawyer also argued, her advocate in fact argued yesterday that the seizure was made from the room where Munmun Dhamecha was there. So if a seizure is made in a corner of that particular room, it cannot be connected to that particular person, and it cannot be assumed or presumed that the person was responsible for that custody. So these are the important arguments as far as these cases concerned today as of now. Now it remains to be seen that how NCB is going to counter these arguments in the Bombay High Court, and after the submission filed by the NCB, Bombay High Court will definitely pass an order, likely today or not today, then maybe the High Court may reserve the verdict for tomorrow.
All right,
Yeah,
Yogesh,
Preeti, over to you.
under the law, explain to our viewers what what could be the future course of action. The two sides are if a bail plea is granted or if the bail plea is rejected. In both the cases, what is the future course of action?
See, the first coming to the first possibility, that suppose bail is rejected, obviously there will be an appellate court also. The Supreme Court is there. Then the defense team may challenge the verdict to the Supreme Court, as they have challenged the verdict of Sessions Court to the High Court. This is hierarchy. Coming to another possibility, that if bail is granted, then it would be a major relief for all three accused. There is no doubt, and also most importantly, then it will come to the trial later on. If bail is granted and the NCB investigation on, then it will be a trial phase. Now there are two very important things at this point in time. If trial commences, then first thing would be discharge or acquittal. Discharge means, suppose the charges, whatever charges under 8C or 27, 28, 29, 35, whatever the charges that have been leveled against these accused, if NCB moves the court to frame the charges, then there will be a strong argument there, and their defense team would try to get discharged, because if they are getting discharged, then there will be no further case, there will be no trial. Basically, this is the basic difference between discharge and acquittal. Acquittal means entire trial after the accused found innocent, then it is acquittal. And even if there is no trial, the court finds that there is no merit in the case, there is no legal reasoning in this case, there is no evidence, there is no ground of arrest, then the case would be demolished, and then the case should be then the accused may be discharged. So it remains to be seen. In fact it will take time, because first bail hearing, and later on it remains to be seen what would be the further course of action from the defense side. But this is a legal thing, as you have asked. So discharge and acquittal, these are the two things which are expected after if bail is granted them.
All right, Yogesh, we leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent Yogesh Sheetal telling us more about the ardent bail plea case. We'll keep you updated. In other news, President Nath Kovind will today visit Gujarat on a 3-day visit. The President will inaugurate a housing scheme project for economically weaker sections at Bhavnagar. He will also visit Sri Chitrakoot Dham, ashram of Murari Babu at Talga Jadra in Bhavnagar district. And in other news, International Film Festival of India, that is IFFI, has invited applications from young filmmakers across the country to encourage and recognize young creative minds and budding talent in the country. Out of these, 75 creative minds will be selected by a committee comprising of eminent film personalities to attend the 52nd International Film Festival.
India's biggest and Asia's oldest festival, IFFI, not only showcases India's rich storytelling traditions, but also provides a platform to young filmmakers, distributors and other film enthusiasts to interact and exchange cultural expressions. With an endeavour to encourage and recognise young creative minds and budding talent in the country, the International Film Festival of India invited applications from young filmmakers across the country. 75 creative minds will be selected by a committee comprising eminent film personalities to attend the 52nd International Film Festival. Applicants should have showcased their skills in at least 2 short films in feature and non-feature modes in one of the following categories: direction, editing, cinematography, sound recording, acting, playback singing, production design, script writing. The applicant should be an Indian national, not above 35 years of age. The films may be in their original language, but must be subtitled in English. The films accredited to the candidate shall not be older than 3 years as of 1/10/2021. The applicants may participate by sending in their duly filled and scanned application forms at india75.ifi@gmail.com. This form is available on the websites www.dff.gov.in and www.ifigoa.org. The selection committee will comprise eminent film personalities and jury members. The committee will shortlist 150 applicants from all the entries received and then select the finest 75 creative minds of tomorrow from them. The decision of the committee shall be final and binding, and no appeal or correspondence regarding their decision shall be entertained. The selected 75 creative minds of tomorrow will be invited to attend the 52nd International Film Festival of India, Goa 2021, with an access to all the master classes, in-conversation sessions, along with other activities. Bureau Report, DD India.
In international news, the World Bank halted disbursements for operations in Sudan on Wednesday in response to the military seizure of power from a transitional government. World Bank President David Malpass in a statement said that the World Bank paused disbursements in all of its operations in Sudan on Monday, and it has stopped processing any new operations as we closely monitor and assess the situation. It was the latest blow to the impoverished African nation. Earlier, the United States also suspended aid to the country. The World Bank and IMF in June granted Sudan debt relief under the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, cutting the nation's debt in half to about $28 billion, and the institutions have offered additional help if economic reforms continue. Thousands of people have taken to the streets since Monday's coup led by Armed Forces Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. State oil company workers, doctors and pilots also have joined civilian groups opposing the takeover. So far, at least 10 were killed in clashes with security forces. Meanwhile, Sudan State TV late on Wednesday reported that Burhan had relieved 6 Sudanese ambassadors from their posts, apparently because they rejected the military takeover. The 6 were envoys to the United States, the European Union, China, Qatar, France, and the head of the mission to Geneva. India, meanwhile, said that it will continue to support Sudan and South Sudan in their journey towards peace and development. The counselor in India's permanent mission to the UN, A. Nath, said that India, as a long-standing partner, will continue to support Juba and Khartoum in their journey towards peace and development. He was speaking at UNSC briefing on UNISFA and South Sudan on Wednesday. India has contributed to the development of both Sudan and South Sudan countries by means of bilateral assistance and projects. The councillor said that India has long-standing and mutually beneficial friendly relations with both the nations. He also said that New Delhi has contributed to development of both the countries by means of bilateral assistance and projects. India also called on both Sudanese and South Sudanese authorities to facilitate early resolution of long-pending issues such as visas for police personnel, reaching an agreement on the civilian deputy head of the mission, and also operationalization of the Antony airstrip. The council also highlighted humanitarian situation in the Abay area that remains challenging, particularly in context of the COVID pandemic. Abdallah Hamdok, the deposed Prime Minister of Sudan, was in good health when visited by envoys from France, Germany, Norway, UK, United States, the European Union and also the United Nations. The UN mission in Sudan, in a tweet post, has informed about Hamdok. The West has called for restoration of the council and also the release of civilian leaders. Meanwhile, UN Special Representative Volker Perthes met Burhan on Wednesday and told him that the United Nations wants to see a return to transition process and the immediate release of all those arbitrarily detained. Let's take a look at the COVID situation from across the world. As per the figures, so far more than 24 crore 57 lakh people have contracted the virus, while the number of recoveries stands above 22 crore 27 lakh globally. The virus has claimed over 49 lakh 87,000 lives. The US continues to remain the worst affected country with the disease, where the number of cases have crossed 4 crore 65 lakh, while the death toll remains above 7 lakh 61,000. Singapore's health ministry has said that it is looking into an unusual surge in infections after the city-state reported 5,324 new cases of the virus on Wednesday. This is the most since the beginning of the pandemic. Singapore also recorded 10 new deaths from the disease on Wednesday, taking the toll to 349. It also extended some of its social curbs last week to contain the spread of the virus for around a month in order to ease the pressure on healthcare system. Authorities have reimposed curbs that include limiting social interactions and dining out to 2 people in order to slow the virus transmission. In the United States, the states have placed initial orders of COVID vaccines for children, and millions of doses will be shipped immediately as soon as US health regulators authorize their use. White House COVID response coordinator Jeff Zients' comments came just after Moderna CEO Stephen Bancel said that he believes that his company's COVID vaccine will be authorized for 12 to 17-year-olds in the next few weeks. Moderna plans to apply for separate US regulatory clearance in children aged 6 to 11 very soon. That he is hopeful that age group could start receiving Moderna shots by the end of this year. While children becoming seriously ill or dying from COVID is relatively rare as compared with adults, some develop complications and infections in unvaccinated kids that have risen due to the easily transmitted Delta variant of the virus. At least 1.5 million Americans received a booster shot of either Moderna or Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine in the first 5 days after US regulators authorized the extra doses. White House COVID response coordinator said that the administration is working with the states, pharmacies and other entities to quickly get boosters to tens of millions of eligible Americans. Following the FDA and CDC's decisions last week, Pfizer, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson's boosters are now available for tens of millions of eligible Americans. White House COVID response coordinator Jeff Zients has said that the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccination deadline will not require immediate action on part of employers against unvaccinated employees when it comes into force on December 8th. He said that the same was true for November 22nd deadline for federal employees to get vaccinated. He also said that he expects federal agencies and contractors will follow their standard HR processes, and that for any of the probably relatively small percent of employees that are not in compliance, they'll go through education, counseling, accommodations, and then enforcement. US President issued a pair of executive orders on September 9th to require all executive branch federal employees and also federal contractors be vaccinated. After almost 6 months of investigation, a Brazilian Senate inquiry into COVID-19 has ended its proceedings by recommending the indictment of federal authorities, government aides and companies for numerous crimes committed during the pandemic. The first on the list is Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro, who is accused of committing crimes such as prevarication, the failure to carry out or delay of public duties for reasons of personal interest, charlatanism, the promotion of false cures, and also the spread of the virus. He has also been accused of crimes of responsibility laid out in Brazil's constitution, which is punishable with impeachment due to incompatibility of its conduct with the dignity, honor, and also decorum expected out of the presidential office. Aside from Bolsonaro, the panel recommended charges be brought against 78 people, ranging from officials to bloggers, academicians, and also healthcare professionals. Time now for a short break. You're watching News on the Hour. Stay with us.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes land.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi hasti.
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east.
For technical details, scan here.
Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. Let's get you more international updates. Russia hit another record for daily COVID deaths on Wednesday as authorities across the country moved to keep most people off work in line with a Kremlin order aimed at stemming the spread. The Kremlin has cautioned Russians against traveling during a non-working period ordered by Moscow to stem a spike in COVID infections and deaths. President Vladimir Putin last week ordered the week-long paid holiday between October 30th and November 7th in a bid to reverse rising infections in the country, one of the worst affected in Europe. The government COVID task force registered 1,123 deaths in 24 hours, the largest daily toll since the pandemic's start. The number brought the country's official COVID death toll to 2,33,898. That is by far the highest in Europe. Meanwhile, Day of the Dead in Mexico this year will be marked by a grim statistic. At 7.6%, the country has one of the highest COVID mortality rates in the world. As one of the major capitals of Latin America, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation chose Mexico City on Wednesday for its latest push towards patent release of COVID vaccines. A performance with dancers dressed as traditional Mexican Catrinas in front of a sign that read "Death is in mourning" was part of the campaign the foundation is trying to get across to the leaders all over the world. The message is aimed at leaders attending this weekend's summit of the group of 20 leading economies in Rome who have the best access to vaccines. Australia eased its COVID-related travel advice for several countries, including the United States, Britain and Canada, as it prepares to reopen its borders next week for the first time in over 18 months. Australia will lift its outbound travel ban for fully vaccinated residents from November 1st, following a strong uptake of COVID vaccines, as Sydney and Melbourne, its biggest cities, look to welcome overseas travellers without quarantine. Under the updated travel advice framework, the Do Not Travel advisory put in place for all destinations in March 2020 has been removed. But no destination will be set lower than Level 2 exercise, a high degree of caution. Now, Australia has been gradually easing tough restrictions in Sydney and Melbourne, helped by higher vaccination levels. The relaxation in travel rules, however, is not uniform across Australia, as the country's states and territories have differing vaccination rates and also health policies. Moderna said that COVID vaccines should start to be used in children and also teens in the United States within weeks. Moderna CEO Stephen Bankel said that based on the dialogue with the US Food and Drug Administration, he believes that his company's COVID vaccine will be authorized for 12 to 17-year-olds in the next few weeks. Moderna plans to apply for separate US regulatory clearance in children aged 6 to 11 very soon. Also, Moderna expects to publish data from its vaccine study of children as young as 6 months to 6 years by the end of this year or early in 2022. Moderna applied for US authorization of its shot for those aged 12 to 17 in June. If published, positive data from a clinical trial in children aged 6 to 11 this week, but has not yet submitted an application to regulators for that age group. Earlier, a panel of advisors to the FDA on Tuesday backed the use of Pfizer's shot in children aged 5 to 11. That still needs authorization from the FDA and the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The European Union's top court has ordered Poland to pay a daily fine of €1 million for failing to suspend a disciplinary chamber for judges that the bloc says breaches the European Union law in yet another escalation of the conflict between Warsaw and Brussels. The European Court of Justice on Wednesday said that Poland was breaking the law by maintaining the disciplinary chamber of its Supreme Court, a body that's deemed to be incompatible with the EU law. The hefty penalty was immediately denounced as blackmail by the Polish government spokesperson. Some fear that the escalating situation could put Poland's membership in the EU at risk. Earlier this month, Poland's Constitutional Court ruled that Polish law supersedes EU law when there is a conflict between the two, angering European leaders by, in effect, rejecting the primacy of EU law. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amirabdollahian has expressed optimism that the head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog will certainly travel to Iran. He further said that talks between Tehran and six powers to revive a 2015 nuclear pact will resume soon. The Iranian minister, however, did not specify any date for IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi's visit, saying that the date is not important. In April, Tehran and six powers started to discuss ways to salvage the 2015 nuclear pact, which 3 years ago the then US President Donald Trump had abandoned. Trump then reimposed harsh sanctions on Iran that have devastated its economy by squeezing its oil exports. In response to Trump's pressure, Tehran had gradually breached the deal by rebuilding stockpiles of enriched uranium, refining it to higher fissile purity, and also installing advanced centrifuges to speed up the output. For months, Western powers have urged Iran to return to negotiations and said the time is running out as Tehran's nuclear program advances well beyond the limits set by the deal. After 6 rounds of talks in Vienna, Tehran and Washington still disagree on what steps need to be taken and when. Up next, an update on Spain's La Palma island, where Cumbre Vieja volcano has stepped into its 6th week of activity on Sunday, having begun on 19th of September. A volcanologist with Spain's National Geographic Institute said on Wednesday that volcanic activity was likely to increase inside La Palma's exclusion zone, but lava flows were unlikely to reach the sea. Around 7,000 people have had to evacuate their homes in La Palma. 5.0 magnitude earthquake was recorded, that is the highest since the eruption began. As on Wednesday, lava flow now covers surface area of over 900 hectares according to Copernicus radar imaging, with more than 2,200 buildings destroyed, over 35,000 earthquakes and tremors recorded in La Palma over the past month. And residents in Catania on Wednesday sought to repair the damage reaped by a violent storm which has swept across southern Italy. In a brief respite from torrential rains, shop owners sought to dry out their businesses after widespread flooding swamped the Sicilian town on Tuesday, turning streets into rivers. At least 2 people have died and 1 person is still missing since the storm first hit over the weekend. Schools in the town have been closed and traffic restrictions were implemented, including a ban on scooters. Public parks and open-air sports facilities are also closed. Weather experts warned that the storm was expected to hit once again today and tomorrow. And taking an update on the US stocks, the Wall Street stayed near record highs on Wednesday. However, stocks elsewhere slid as the banning of China Telecom from the United States and Germany's downgrade to its growth outlook weighed on the sentiment. The Nasdaq ended little changed on Wednesday, boosted by gains in Microsoft and Google parent Alphabet on their heels of their quarterly results. But a drop in oil prices and a pullback in treasury yields weighed on the cyclic sectors and pulled the S&P 500 lower. Dow and S&P 500 edged up at the opening bell from their record closes, although they failed to strike all-time intraday highs and then later dipped into the red, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.12 points to 15,235.84. And coming to domestic markets opening session, Sensex opened in the red, dropping over 258 points to trade around 60,884 in the opening session. Nifty declined 72 points to open at 18,138.75. Meanwhile, the rupee surged 12 paise to 74.91 against the US dollar in early trade. Domestic indices dragged down by metal stocks on the back of sharp declines in global prices. Alright, let's talk of sports now. EFL Cup holders Manchester City were knocked out of the Carabao Cup after West Ham United won 5-3 on penalties in front of an ecstatic sellout crowd at London Stadium. The fourth round tie had ended goalless after 90 minutes before Said Benrahma scored the decisive spot kick. Phil Foden fired his penalty wide to give the Hammers the advantage in the shootout. It is the first time since 2016 City, who have won the competition for the past 4 seasons, have been eliminated. Liverpool sealed a place in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup with a hard-fought 2-0 win over Preston North End. West Ham ended Manchester City's 4-year hold on the League Cup as Liverpool and Tottenham booked their places in the quarterfinals. City's record run in the competition came to an end at the London Stadium as the Hammers emerged 5-3 winners from a penalty shootout after both sides were guilty of missing penalty of chances in a 0-each draw. And Real Madrid went top of La Liga on goal difference after a goalless draw with Osasuna. Real Madrid is one of the 4 teams on 21 points alongside Sevilla, Real Betis and Real Sociedad. 6th placed Osasuna, who are only 2 points off the top, had the best chance of the game when Jean Moncaliella hit the post from close range. Now this was his first point at Bernabeu since 2005, ending a run of 11 Real wins in the fixture. The 4-way leaders are 3 points above champions Atletico Madrid and 6 points above Barcelona, who lost 1-0 at Rayo Vallecano. And a Paris museum on Wednesday handed back the cultural artifacts that were looted from modern-day Benin during the colonial era. The ceremony presided over by French President Emmanuel Macron. The Kwai Branly Museum returned to the Republic of Benin 26 artifacts that were stolen from the Kingdom of Bombay in 1892. Now they are among 5,000 works requested by the West African country. And also, attention all you Potterheads, if you were or are a fan of J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, then this will definitely bring a smile on your face. Now, a trolley which transported young wizards to Hogwarts School of Magic arrived in Cardiff as part of its tour around the United Kingdom to celebrate Harry Potter film franchise's 20th anniversary. The trolley will continue its tour in Belfast on October 29th before concluding in Dublin on November 7th. Now, before we end this edition of News on the Hour, we will leave you with these magical visuals of the installation that gives fans a chance to recreate the journey to Hogwarts from the fictitious platform 9 3x4. Take a look. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.